Okay, day 37, and I've been thinking, well, actually I was having a conversation the other night, a wonderful, beautiful conversation about being in the present moment, and a lot of people are hearing that now, and what does that mean? What does being in the present moment mean? So for me, it means that I understand what's happening right now in my world, and that can be minute to minute or even day to day. So it means not worrying about the past. Yes, we have to reflect on the past, recapitulate and learn, but not holding on to it. And then being able to be here in the now to see the opportunities that are coming and the lessons learned and be aware of what's happening so we don't repeat the past. And it also means don't be worried too much about the future, because ultimately God and the universe has a plan for us. And if we have ultimate faith, then we don't need to worry about the future. We need to worry about right now, because if we're in anxiety over the future, you can't see my hands, but they're over here. Or if we're in anxiety about the past and worry, or fear, then we are not present enough to be in the future to make the correct decisions, because that causes monkey mind. We know that fear and anxiety and stress causes stress and monkey mind. So then I got into the conversation about if we're in the present moment, what is meditation? So if we're in the present moment in our waking state, so our waking state is actually a state of consciousness. And a meditative state is another state of consciousness. I believe there's 7 states of consciousness. So when we're in meditation, our thoughts are still happening. We're still kind of aware of what's going on. If a fire alarm went off, we'd be able to come out of meditation. But the way I meditate is I have a mantra that's just a vibration, so it doesn't actually mean anything. I repeat it silently in my head, and when I have a thought or I get carried away with thoughts, I go back to that mantra. And at some point during the meditation, or people who meditate are dipping into what we call the gap. And the gap is where there's no time, there's no space, there's no language. That's basically God consciousness. And you don't really know you're there. In fact, the moment you think, oh, was I in the gap? Yeah, you're now back not in the gap, because you won't know that it's there. No time, no space, no language. It's just pure energy and love. But you slip into it. So meditative is one state of consciousness. And ultimately, we were having the conversation about being in the present moment, that he thought that being in meditation was being in the present moment because you're very aware. When I said, actually, I believe that in the waking state, you're more in the present moment. And then we had the idea of, well, what's going on with Christ and Buddha and Krishna? And they were all, Christ, for instance. Christ was in this, what we call Christ consciousness, enlightenment. He was constantly in there. So what's the difference between the three? Well, obviously, enlightenment's a bit different than waking state. It's also different than meditation. So I wanted to give it a visual, first of all, before I go any further about meditation. Every time we meditate, we dip into this gap. And if you think about it as a big swimming pool, I'm going to use an example here for you, okay? Here's a glass of water, good old Pyrex. And every time we dip into it, okay, so we're in meditation, we're going thought, mantra, 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 we're going to dip into the gap. So as you dip into the gap, what you bring out is a little bit of water with you. Okay, so if you imagine that the gap or the universe or God consciousness is this water, and when you dip into the gap, which you really don't know you do, but trust me, you do during meditation, you come back out, you're taking a little bit of that water with you. Even if you just dip a toe or a small little part of the spoon, you're still bringing water out with you. And that water stays with you. And the more you do it, the more it stays. So basically, meditation takes you into this area of getting into God consciousness and bringing it out into your waking state with you. So when I started talking to him about, well, God consciousness or Christ consciousness, people who are enlightened and are able to constantly have that connection with God and the universe, as well as function in our waking world, that's Christ consciousness. It's a combination of meditation, your consciousness within meditation, and the waking state. It's kind of melding them together. And ultimately, that's the goal, right? To be able to always be in that Christ consciousness and be full of love and compassion and be able to love your enemies. You know, it's inconceivable sometimes, but that's the idea. That's the idea, is to meditate, to pray, and then I pray, and then I meditate, and I dip into that, and I bring a little bit of that water out every time. It cleans my soul a little bit. It connects me to thy soul, connects me to my divine source, to God, to the universe. I bring it out with me into the waking state because it causes gaps in our thoughts so that our thoughts are clear and we're bringing that Christ consciousness, God consciousness with us. So hopefully that explains some of it. Just some deep thoughts. But I figured I'd throw them out there for today. It's a long one. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. It's beautiful, nice and cool here in Arizona. And I'm off to work in a little bit.